Hey guys, welcome back to the new video. My name is Igor and you're watching 3D Innovacije. So, today we got two models to work on. I have gotten a few questions, so I want to show you how I like to paint anime, cartoon and realistic skin tones. In this video we're gonna focus solely on anime skin tones, but in future videos I will show you how I paint realistic skin tones also. For this video, there are two main approaches. The first one is called self-shading. Honestly, it's not my favorite method because while it can look amazing from one angle, it can also look a bit weird from some other angles. It takes a long time to paint since we need to do a lot of work with the brush instead of the airbrush, and this will also work only on anime characters and not on something like Marvel or DC. The second approach is making smooth, soft pinkish skin tones. Anime characters usually don't have much texture or imperfections, so it's really about finding a right balance between shadows, highlights, and the overall tone. This is my preferred style because it looks great from any angle and it just feels more natural, at least to me. The process is very similar for male and female characters. For males, I simply go with a slightly darker skin tone to give a bit more contrast and depth, but it depends from character to character. I will be demonstrating everything step by step. This video is imagined as a paint-along video, so here is a list of all the colors I used, so you can easily follow me and get the exact same results at the end. We're gonna use a model that's super popular right now, and that's Rumi from K-Pop Demon Hunters. Go watch the anime on Netflix, it's really good. We will paint two versions, one that is more revealing and one that is closer to the cartoon look. The models were made by different artists. This one was made by Arome Art and this one was made by GiblyCreations. Links will be in the description below. One will be painted in multiple pieces, while the other will be done in a single solid figure. So you will see how both approaches work in practice. That's it for the intro, everything else will be explained during the video, so let's get started. As usual, before we can paint it, we need to print it. So I'm gonna use ABS-like Resin Pro 2 and the printer is Anycubic M7 Pro. All the parts from the models were printed with grey resin, except for the sword, which was done in clear resin. The sword is just one solid piece, so there's no need to hollow it. I'm not gonna spend time in this video explaining how I print transparent resins, because it's exactly the same process I used in my Fire Fist Ace video from One Piece. The flames on that figure are transparent and made in the exact same way as I did this sword, so you can go and check that video for more information. Once all the parts are off the build plate, I put them straight into hot water and leave them there for about 15 minutes. Soaking softens supports really nicely, so they slide off like butter, leaving almost no support marks. Next comes the first wash in my dirty bucket and then the second wash in my less dirty bucket. After that I give the parts a quick dry in my food dehydrator and finish everything off by curing them for around 5 minutes. As always, I'm using these small UV LED lights to cure all the hollowed pieces from inside. This way I can be sure there's no uncured resin trapped anywhere inside. Alright, time for the fun part. If you're crazy. We need to sand down all the support marks and make the surface nice and smooth. If you have any drain holes in visible spots, fill them up with milliput. Let it sit for a few hours until it's fully dry and then sand that area also to be smooth as well. Before painting, make sure to dry fit every single part. You really don't want to paint everything and then realize that some pieces don't fit properly and still need more sanding. The last step before painting is setting up all the parts on bamboo sticks, which makes handling and painting them much easier. I will paint one version of the model as a full figure in one piece, except for the head, so I'm gluing the legs here and letting them dry for a bit. We're going to start with a grey primer this time. Everything I do for the skin tones on one model, I will also do on the other model, so if I don't show it, just know that. To fit this big one inside my airbrush boot, I had to modify the setup a little bit by removing the top. Since model is almost 40 cm tall, there was no way to fit it inside. When spraying the primer, keep your layers thin. Always rotate the model and try not to hit the same spot twice in a row. Give it a moment to dry before coming back to it. Working with grey primer is a bit harder than working with black, at least for me. It's thinner, so while you can sometimes get away by spraying one heavy coat of black primer, the grey one doesn't forgive that. It can start to run down the model and build up in certain areas. It's also harder to notice if you missed a spot and didn't prime it. The good thing is that we can skip one extra step. When using black primer, I usually go over everything with white ink afterwards to make the colors pop out more. With grey primer, we don't need to do that, we can start painting right away. Anime skin tones are usually more on the pinkish side, with very smooth shading and almost no visible textures or color variations. The style used in anime is called cel shading, and it's created by using flat base colors with sharp edges between light and shadow instead of the soft gradient. This gives that clean two-dimensional look that matches the animation style. When painting figures, we can either follow that cel shading approach or go for a more natural look by layering colors, boosting shadows and highlights, and letting real light bring out the shapes and details in the end. Personally, I prefer this second approach because it gives the skin a softer and more realistic feel, so that's the style I'm going for here. Alright, once the primer is completely dry, we will start with Borrowed Purple from Vallejo. Spray the entire model with it. I always do a few thin layers, so even if I don't show it again or mention it, just assume that that's what I'm doing. And just a quick note, this bikini top on the model is removable. I'm not gonna show it in the video since I'm not sure what YouTube rules are, but off camera I painted underneath in the exact same way. After covering all the skin areas, grab some red ink. Reduce the airflow on your airbrush until you start getting these tiny dots. Try it first on a paper towel. The dots don't have to be the same size, it doesn't matter. In short bursts, open and close airbrush trigger while moving around the model, adding those dots everywhere. Try to keep it consistent, don't fill one area too much and leave another area empty. This step will be the base for adding skin texture, which will help the model look more realistic. Next step is to take rosy flesh, thin it down with water, and start covering skin in light gradual layers. Build it up slowly and let each pass dry a little before adding the next one. You don't want to completely cover that pinkish undertone that we sprayed before. It should still show slightly through the rosy flesh to give the skin more depth and warmth. After that, take Reikland Flash Shade and spray it into all the natural folds and deeper areas of the body. Focus on spots like muscle separation, around the abs, under the arms, between the legs, and anywhere you see natural lines or shadows. Move around the whole model and add it evenly wherever it makes sense. Reduce the airbrush airflow. This will give you more control and help you be more precise. The second model doesn't have much visible muscle separation. The legs and arms are pretty flat and smooth, so here you can add some shading around the kneecaps and spots where shadows would naturally fall, like back of the legs. Now we need to lighten up the skin a bit, since Rumi has a lighter skin tone. We're going to make a wash by mixing pale flesh and wash medium. My usual ratio to make a wash is 3 drops of thinner, 5 drops of wash medium, 3 drops of paint and about 15 drops of water. Always test a mix on a paper towel before spraying it on a model. Apply it in very thin layers, little by little, across the whole model, until you get a tone that matches how Rumi looks in the cartoon. Next, take a bit of red tone wash and apply it in the same way, again in thin layers over the skin. This will bring back that pinkish warmth that we lost with the pale flesh layer and make the skin look more lively. For the final step, grab Reikland Flash Shade again, and even though it's already a shade, you can thin it down a bit more with water. Be sure to test it on a paper towel first. Lower the air pressure on your compressor and add just a touch in the most obvious shadow areas like abs, under the bikini, under the arms, and anywhere else where shadows will naturally form. That's it for the skin tones. Let everything dry completely and then seal it all with matte varnish. It will protect the paint and prevent any damage later on. For male skin tones, the process is basically the same. The only real difference is that I start with a slightly darker base color instead of rosy flesh. You want the skin to look a bit less soft and more defined, so a darker tone helps bring out the difference right from the start. From there you can follow the exact same layering, shading and highlighting steps as we did before. It's all about adjusting the base tone to match the character look. Alright, now let's move on and finish the rest of the model. We're gonna start with the boots. Make sure to protect the skin tones with masking tape and use some old shirt or a piece of cloth just to hold the model so you don't have to mask everything. For the base color I'm using Night Blue from Vallejo. It's a pretty dark color, but not quite dark enough, so we'll shade it with Drakenhof Nightshade. According to the reference photo that I found online, the boots aren't black, but actually very dark blue, so just spray the color evenly around the boots and let it dry completely. Next, take some black color and spray it only where the shadows would naturally form, like at the bottom of the boots, around the zipper, and in areas where you see folds or creases. Once the shadows are done, we can add some highlights. Mix a bit of ultramarine blue with wash medium and make a thin wash. Apply it to the front of the boots where the light would naturally hit. For the final step, use neon oil to blend everything together. The shadows and highlights will still be visible, but this will smooth out the transition and give the boots a nice, slightly shiny finish, since washes usually leave a bit of a glossy look. For the shirt, we're gonna use Brain Matter Beige. It's pretty close to white, but not exactly, and it's actually better because nothing in nature is ever completely white. The shirt has texture, so make sure not to spray heavy layer or you will fill it up and lose the texture. To give it a bit more depth and make it look less flat, we'll add some shadows using Drakenhof Nightshade. Spray it slightly near the bottom of the shirt, under the chest and a little bit around the necklace. Basically, know the spots where shadows would naturally form. Moving on to the trousers, let's start with the Imperial Navy color. Once it's dry, I used Drakenhof Nightshade to darken the tone, but I quickly realized that the color wasn't dark enough and it didn't really make any difference. So I switched to a dark tone instead and sprayed the trousers again, since in the cartoon they look darker. Next, take some black paint and carefully spray it into all the folds and creases, as well as around the pockets and zippers. This will bring out the contrast and make details like pockets pop out. For the final step, I mixed a bit of blue tone wash with some neon oil. Apply this mix over the trousers to blend everything together. It will leave a nice glossy finish with a subtle blue sheen. Alright, the jacket is yellow, but we're gonna start with the pixie pink as the base color. When you spray yellow over that, it gives a much deeper and more vibrant yellow tone. For the main color, I'm using sun yellow. Apply it in a nice thin layers and build it up slowly. You don't want to spray too much at once because it can easily cover up the fine details on the jacket. Once it's dry, I recommend attaching the sleeves to the jacket before moving on. That way you will get a smooth transition when you start shading. If you do them separately, they might end up looking slightly off in color, and it will seem like they don't fit together. To add shadows, I'm using Fuegan Orange. Spray it in the areas where shadows would naturally form, like the bottom of the jacket, under the hair, along the lower parts of the sleeves, and inside of the folds. We will do the same thing on that hair decoration as well. After the shadows, it's time for highlights. Take some ice yellow, thin it a bit and spray it on the spots where the light would naturally hit, like the shoulders, the top of the sleeves and the collar. And that's it for the jacket. At least for now, it will come back later as the final boss in the game. There's a small decoration on Rumi's hip. I'm gonna start by spraying the whole thing with Pixie Pink. We'll add more details later with a brush. For the shoulder decoration, it's the same idea. We'll paint the details later, but for now just cover the whole piece with black. It's great that the sword handle is separated from the blade, because that makes our job a lot easier. For now, we're just gonna spray the entire handle with gold color. Use silver for the necklace around the neck. Once the paint dries, gently move the chain left and right with your fingers until it becomes loose again, because the paint will usually seal it and make it stiff. While we already have silver in the airbrush, just use it for that little earring piece as well. For the base, it's completely up to you. You can use whatever color or finish you like. I went with the weapon bronze because I think it gives it a nice podium-like look. For the bikini top, I'm using Mage Cast Magenta. Leave it off the model until it's completely dry. The last part we can do with airbrush is the blade of the sword. Since this one was printed with clear resin, we're going to color it using alcohol inks. All the alcohol inks I used so far behaved pretty much the same. These are just some random brand I picked up from Temu and they work fine. With alcohol inks, less is more, so be careful. Even a small amount will color the surface quite a lot. I'm starting with light blue. Spray it in random spots, you don't need to cover the entire sword. Next, I'm using rose red, and again spray it randomly. This will create a nice rainbow-like effect, with colors blending together and flowing naturally, almost like water. So put the airbrush away, grab your wet palette and let's start adding the details. We will begin with the boots. Use Wicked Pink for that line that runs from the top to the bottom. After that, take Wild Green and paint two thin lines next to it. If you mess the model while painting the boots with the airbrush, like I did, you will probably need to fix the top edge. I mixed night blue and black until I got a color that matched the boots and painted the area where the boots meet the skin, since that part was covered with the tape before. For the soles of the shoes, use pure black. On one of the models, there are also some decorations on the boots. Paint those with silver. The larger model also has zippers on the boots, so go ahead and paint those in silver too. For the rest of the clothing on the big model, we'll use the same color as the bikini top, Mage Cast Magenta. That includes the decorations around the legs, the bikini bottom, and the piece around the arm. You can use different colors if you prefer, but I think this one fits really well. To add a bit of depth, use neon oil near the edges where the clothing touches the skin. It helps the pieces stand out and adds a nice sense of separation between materials. In the cartoon, Rumi has black nails, but I think that would look a bit too harsh on the model. So instead, I used Pixie Pink for the nails, which fits with her overall color scheme much better. But if you want black, go right ahead. Now, let's move on to the hair. Start with the purple Swarm Speed Paint as the base. This paint will automatically make the creases darker and the raised areas lighter, giving the hair some depth right from the start. You will need to apply it in two layers. Try to move your brush in the same direction as the hair flows. If you notice that the paint is building up on the top parts, push it gently into the creases with your brush. Where the hair meets the skin, don't draw one clean straight line. That can make it look like she's wearing a helmet. Instead, use tiny strokes pulling the paint slightly from the face into the hair. And in case you make a mistake, like I did here, don't worry, that's exactly why we varnished the model before. Keep a few wet cotton buds or something similar nearby, and if you accidentally get paint on the skin, just wipe it off right away. You won't damage the paint underneath since it's sealed and protected. Follow the same process for both heads, and don't forget to paint that little hair tip as well. After the paint is completely dry, we'll add highlights using dry brushing. This technique will only catch the raised parts of the hair, while the crevices will stay darker. I mixed Mage Cast Magenta with a bit of dead white until I got a slightly lighter shade. Now lightly dry brush over the top sections of the hair, focusing on the areas that would naturally catch more light. Leave the lower parts darker to keep that nice contrast. For that final step, cover everything with Drakenhoof Nightshade. This will soften that dry brushed look, blend the highlights and shadows together, and give the hair a subtle shine. For the decoration piece I used sun yellow. You will probably need 2 or 3 layers to get the full coverage and a nice even look. Check the ears for earrings or other small details and paint those silver. Alright, now for the final boss, the jacket. There aren't any real tricks here, nothing special I can show except the colors I used. My advice is to find a good reference photo online and just start painting slowly, little by little. It took me a long time to finish mine, going back and forth adding details, so I won't go through the whole process in the video. The way I approach it is by starting with the color that covers the largest area, and then layering the rest on the top, going from the biggest to the smallest section. For example, if you have an area that's red, green and purple, don't paint one color at a time separately. Instead, paint everything red first, then paint over everything except the red parts with a green color, and finally add purple on the smallest parts. This method helps minimize mistakes and make the whole process faster and cleaner. The colors I used on the jacket are Bright Sapphire, Wyvern Fury, Dead White, Black, Wicked Pink, Pixie Pink, Green Skin and Silver for the zippers. There might be a few others that I forgot to mention, but that's not really important. Just look for a good reference image and use the closest color you have, it will look good. To make the color separations and details pop out a bit more, I used a black ink pen with a very fine tip to outline and define the shapes. On the shoulder decoration, I added a simple outline using Warlord Purple. Alright, that's it for the jacket. Let's move on to the pants. Use bloody red for the belt and for the stripes along the sides of the trousers, and paint the zippers with silver color. To make the pocket stand out more and not blend in with the trousers, take some neon oil and carefully go around the edges. Do the same thing for the belt loops to give them more depth. That's all there is for the pants, nothing too complicated. For the blouse, there's not much to do except paint the necklace with silver color. At this point I think we covered all the silver details on the model. The earrings, zippers, necklace. Once they're dry, take neon oil and apply one thin layer over all of them. This will add more depth and dimension, especially on the zippers and necklace, since the shade will settle into the small creases and make them look more realistic. For the hip decoration, I used Warlord Purple and Bright Sapphire to add some color details, and gold for the bell and that small ring at the top. On the sword handle, there are two parts that should look similar to the blade. Take Bright Sapphire, thin it down, and paint those areas first. Before it dries, add a bit of thinned down Pixie Pink in the same spots. The colors will flow into each other and blend naturally, creating a nice effect similar to the blade. At the top of the handle, there are a few small diamond shapes. I used gemstone red for those, but regular red paint works just fine. Just like on the first model, I used Pixie Pink for the nails and silver for the ring on the finger. There aren't really any solid references for the base, so I decided to use Brain Matter Beige for the Huntrix letters and Magecast Magenta for the decorations around it. You can paint the base however you like, just go with what looks good to you. Now for the final part, the head. If we mess up here, everything else won't matter, so take your time. Let's start with the eyes. First, take pixie pink and paint inside of the both eyes. Once that's dry, grab Brain Matter beige, thin it down a bit, and carefully paint over the pink area. It doesn't need to be a solid layer, let some of that pink show through in a few spots. It creates a subtle look, almost like tiny red veins. If you look closely at your own eye, you will notice they're not completely white either. Both models have sculpted irises shaped like small holes. Take Siger Brown and fill in that area. Next, use hot orange to paint a thicker outline around the outer edge of the brown part. Take some thin pen or brush and make a thin outline on the outside of the orange part. Now we can bring the eyes to life. Take scarlet red and add a few thin irregular lines inside of the hot orange area. Pull the brush from the center to the outwards, following the shape. Do the same thing using a little bit of sun yellow. Don't overdo it, you just want a hint of yellow, with the hot orange still being the main color. After it dries, take some red wash and add a tiny bit to the inner corners and the lower edge of the eyes. It makes it look more realistic. Now we can finish the eyelashes and the outlines. Take black paint and go carefully around the eye. The outline is sculpted into the model, so it should be pretty easy to follow. At this stage, this is roughly how the eyes should look like. For the final detail, use dead white to add a specular highlight. Make one large white dot in the upper left part of the eye and a smaller one in the bottom right. That tiny touch makes the eye look alive. That's it for now. For the eyebrows, use Mage Cast Magenta. They are sculpted into the model, so they are very easy to paint. Once they are dry, we want to darken them just a little bit, so go over them with a thin layer of Noun oil. For the lips, use Magus Purple. Try to add it in 1 or 2 passes at most. The more layers you add with this color, the darker it becomes, so keep it light to maintain that soft tone. I think that's it for the head. I just noticed a few more earrings in the ear here, so I painted those with silver also. Now I'm gonna repeat the same process for the head of the other model.
Just keep on moving to the beat. Don't let them get the best of you. When you are under the weather, getting caught in the storm. Do you remember? I told you if we dance in the blizzard, we are not getting cold. So keep on dancing, baby.
Alright, we're done. leave everything to dry completely and then varnish the model using a mix of matte and satin varnish in a 3:1 ratio. I varnished all the parts except for the necklace, because adding varnish here would make the chains too stiff and it wouldn't hang naturally anymore, so skip this one. For the final detail, take a brush and apply a bit of gloss varnish to the eyes. It gives them that wet, realistic look and makes them stand out. And that's it, we made it through. If you found this process helpful, please like the video, subscribe, leave a comment and share it. But now, let's see the final result. Roll it.
I got this boy on my mind that I can't live without. Oh, his eyes are killing me. And he keeps talking about everything that he likes, and I can't stop listening. I'm thinking about him all the time. I'm thinking about him all the time. I'm thinking about him all the time, all the time. And my heart's beating fast when he's looking like that. Oh, his smile is killing me. It's the way that he moves and the way that he laughs, so I can't get enough. Thinking about him all the time. I can't get him off my mind. Oh, I want him to be mine, to be mine. My heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. You know I want him now, 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 now. My heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it starts, when it starts. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want, if you want. Yeah, I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want. All the way that I feel, yeah, I know that it's real, 'cause I can get him out of my head. I don't care what we do, everything's feeling new. Even if we stay in bed, my heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. You know I want him now, 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 now. My heart is saying yeah, 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 yeah. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it bright.
That's it for this project. Thanks so much for sticking with me through another video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something new along the way. If you'd like to see more, check out my other videos where I go step by step through painting some of my favorite anime and movie characters. Let me know in the comments what would you like to see me paint next, and I'll make sure to check it out. See you soon in the next one. Bye!
I can be a fighter.